Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're so proud to be here today. My name is Mon'nique Nelson. I am the executive chair and owner of UWG, UniWorld Group. We are the longest standing multicultural marketing and advertising agency in the US, and we are honored for being our first partnership with the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival. We are so proud to be here. And we are even prouder to bring our partner for over 40 years, Lincoln Motor Company, to be here with you today as well. This is such a special moment. Lincoln has a special place in the African American legacy, and we are honored to bring a story to life today. We are excited, we are ready, and for this moment, we are inviting Corey Murray, who is the head of Ebony Content, to have a conversation about storytelling and legacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mon'nique. Wow, y'all look really good this morning. Y'all are not like me who drove from Brooklyn at 3 a.m. to make that ferry. Oh yeah. But I did it. I'm here. Next time I'm driving a Lincoln though. So welcome to the Color of Conversation, a space where creativity, culture, and conversation meet to spark creativity and impact deeper connections. I'm Corey Murray, head of editorial content at Ebony, and I am thrilled to be your host today to discuss a moment of pause with Lincoln. I'm seated. Well, I was supposed to be seated. It changed. That's all right. But I'm here, and we're going to talk to a very special guest, someone whose work is not only visually stunning and emotionally resonant, deeply intentional, and unapologetically authentic. Today, we are diving into the power of storytelling, the value of trust and partnership, the importance of pausing to reconnect with ourselves, our communities, and our creative roots. Now, you may know him as a visionary photographer and director from his recent short and long form work with Lincoln. And if you haven't seen it, we'll be sharing it today. But then later on, you can check it out for a more personal experience on Lincoln's YouTube channel. His lens captures not just faces and places, but lived experiences, cultural memory, and moments that stay with you. Please help me welcome Mr. Joshua Kissi.
Thank you. How y'all doing today? Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Love it.
So, Joshua, I know you and I have a little bit of shared history.
We do.
Okay. Josh and I worked together. Before Ebony, I worked at Essence for many years, and we worked on a digital cover with Zazie Beetz,
yes,
which was really cool. And then I went into the Ebony archives, and I see that you were named one of the most stylish black men on Instagram. Okay.
I guess, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
And you photographed several Ebony covers, including
Yes.
Nas and Colin Kaepernick.
Yes.
So before we dive into our fireside chat, in your approved bio, they left some things out. And I'm here to read your receipts.
Okay.
Okay, we gotta let the people know.
Gotta let them know. I appreciate it.
Okay, so at this point in your career, you have worked with LeBron James, okay? Beyonce, y'all. Do y'all know he was one of the directors for Black is King?
I appreciate that.
Okay. And countless other celebs that we know by one name only: Questlove, Lupita, Serena. And you started your career with a groundbreaking platform and that turned into a creative agency, Style Etiquette.
Street Etiquette, but no.
Street Etiquette, I'm sorry.
No, all good.
And started a photo agency, tonal.com.
Yeah.
And you're 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm working hard out here, I guess. Yeah. Having African parents, you got to do all the things. But no, for sure. Thank you.
But before all of those accomplishments, you were a kid from the Bronx. And I want to make sure I get this part right from my research. You pretended to skip school. You pretended to go to school
where are you getting this info
I'm
from?
that's why I'm asking.
No,
the questions.
it's great, but I'm like, only a couple people know
So
that.
y'all, he pretended to skip school. No, I'm sorry. He pretended to go to school. He skipped school to go downtown from the Bronx to take photos of folks.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's
Talk
very
about it.
true. That's very true.
So it is true.
Yes.
And
yeah.
what happened when your parents found this out?
I mean, how's everybody doing? Good. I know.
Are they
I just
here?
feel like I'm in a therapy section. I'm like, I didn't know we were gonna go deep. I didn't know it was gonna go that deep. But just being a first generation creative, I would say in that way. My parents, obviously being from Ghana, weren't super confident in creative industries. So I didn't get to tell them like, this is what I want to do. So I just was acting like I was going to school, but I wasn't. I know it's kind of bad. It's not anything to aspire to. But by the time my dad did find out, he was like, I'm gonna give you 2 years to do exactly what you want to do. And if it works, then like continue to do that. If it doesn't, then we're gonna pick out your major and you're gonna go back. I'm like, oh, nah. I didn't want them to pick out my major and go back to school. So I ended up figuring it out. And I think when you're able to live authentically, I think that's when things start to work in your favor.
Yeah.
So from there, my first job when I was 17 was with Nike. And even then, I couldn't really tell my parents, but they were very curious. They're like, where are you going? Da, da, da. So the people at White and Kennedy had to speak to my parents to let me go on this trip. And they were just like, we're hiring this like 18-year-old kid. Like, we got to speak to his parents to kind of do this campaign. So I started out in 2006, and that was kind of the beginning of my career. But just living authentically yourself is the start of it. But yes, I don't know how you found that tea. That's deep. Like,
I do my research.
I don't know where you found
I'm a journalist.
But but that did happen. So now I'm able to, at the age of 36, live for myself. But I still got to listen to my parents, as we know. But yeah, that was my very beginnings.
So before you started skipping school, what grabbed you about photography? And I'm
Absolutely.
joking about it, but it
for
propelled you that you had that much fire in you.
Photographers like Gordon Parks, obviously, one of the first black photographers to photograph her life archives and had such a beautiful legacy. But it was tough to kind of find reference points of other black image makers. But Gordon Parks is one that came up with so many others. And I was like, okay, I could kind of find a lane within telling stories. And for me, I understood that photographs were just a page in history. So if we're able to covet them and be able to look at them as such, we'd be able to kind of like steward them from generation to generation. So as social media and just digital media in general got more and more, just image driven, it gave the responsibility to make sure culturally that we're not only telling the right stories, but the narratives around it that grow us as a culture.
Well, when you started your platform, Street Etiquette, was it on Tumblr, correct?
Yes, it was on Tumblr, if anybody remembers that. Old school, I guess. I'm born in '89, but now I feel old, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it started on Tumblr, and then it became its own agency. So we started working with different brands, and we didn't go to school for it. So we started to kind of figure out how to scale the business model and think through like, how do we provide value based on storytelling? So the first 10 years we were doing that, and we worked with brands like Nike and Adidas and Jordan brand and Puma and all the brands that obviously were looking for the black consumer and the young black consumer. And us being from the Bronx, I think we had a certain lens on things. At the Bronx, is anybody from the Bronx here? Damn, one person. But the X is up. I feel you. I live in LA now with the hat, I know, but I'm still a Bronx kid, and I think in that day and age, like even now, Brooklyn gets a lot of attention, but it was nice to kind of reframe the narrative around, city culture and what that looked like. And in that early age of digital media, we were kind of the first platforms to kind of present black dandyism and wear prep and all of that. And we see how much of a re-inspiration that's kind of, executed recently with Ralph Lauren doing a collection, and I'm working on something on Nike with HBCUs, and it's the same thing. But it's just like, we have to look back at history and like, how do we make sure we're looking at these moments as connecting to now and not forgetting about where we came from.
I want to share with the audience something that was written about you and the work that you did with Street Etiquette tied to dandyism. It's not going to be scary.
No. I was like, I don't know how much more tea you may have, but
No, this is
at this
good.
point, just tell them
This
everything.
is good. It's from a Substack. Street Etiquette was more than an intellectual project about black culture and style than a fashion blog. Travis and Gums weren't posting outfit photos. They were using style to tell stories and change narratives. Editorials like Black Ivy, inspired by 50s and 60s photos of Howard University students, reclaimed scholarly, respectable dress, while Slum Flower subverted narratives about the Bronx public housing. They didn't identify with the term, but this is the core of black dandyism, using style to subvert narratives and aesthetics to rebel. You were really groundbreaking and changing what we now all consume, and I'm sure led you to Lincoln.
Yes. No, absolutely.
What drove you? I mean, no pun intended.
I know what drove. I just, like I was saying earlier, I really feel like images have a responsibility to represent us. And as a kid, I would just spend hours looking at the family albums, like the family albums in the corner that nobody looks at. I would take those apart and just look through the memories of my parents, living their lives and having kids. And there was something about that that just stuck with me when I was just like, this is what we're going to be passing on to the next generation. And how do we steward that in the right space with the right responsibility? And photography in general is very complex because its invention wasn't meant for us in some ways because of how it renders images against light. Mm-hmm. So people who are wealthy could afford to take images of themselves, of their families. And so to me, it's deeper than just the photo itself. It's the intention and purpose on how we show up in images, right? So the only time they started to render darker skin tones is when they needed to photograph furniture, right? Or chocolate. Yeah, this is the basis of photography. So it's like, it's a tool just like anything else to tell a narrative, to dispel a narrative, so it's like there's a responsibility every time you pick up a camera, and it's no coincidence that it's shaped very similar to a firearm. There's a lot that goes into the language of shooting, and that, like, all of that is by design. So every time I pick up a camera, I feel like I have the responsibility to make sure I'm reinterpreting what that narrative is and the purpose of the camera, and to make sure I'm telling stories that make people feel safe and make people feel like they're being seen and heard.
This makes me think about Frederick Douglass, because he was very adamant and intentional about having his photo taken.
Yeah, back in the day, having your photo taken was like the thing. Like, if you could live 60, 70 years and had one photograph, that mattered.
Yeah.
And especially for our community here, generationally, where it's like, you're trying to find history, you're trying to find notes, you're trying to find letters, you're trying to find photos, just to be able to feel seen. So for me, it's a major responsibility every time I pick up a camera, whether I'm doing a photo shoot or a film shoot, to make sure that I'm paying homage to that process.
You're a master visionary, but you did not come to photography you weren't educated. You taught.
Yeah, no.
So how did you come to photography?
I don't know if anybody heard of Ride Playland, but if you ever heard of Ride Playland, I worked there for a summer to save up for a camera. So I was like, okay, I gotta, work week to week. I was fired by the end. That was a whole other thing. But I know all this tea. I'm getting fired. I'm skipping school.
But look at you now.
No. I promise this is not it. But no, I saved up and bought a camera, and in high school, I was one of the first kids to kind of record with my video camera. It's a whole other thing. I got suspended for doing that. Yeah, I get suspended, fired. I'm a good employee, y'all, I promise. But no, I went to Mount Vernon High School, which is right outside the Bronx, and I videoed some activities that were happening in school that went viral. One of the first videos on YouTube, and my principal didn't love that because he's like, "You're making the school look bad," and da. So I got suspended. But I'm like, these kids are ratchet. It's not me. But
I'm just telling stories.
I was just a documentarian, as you would put it. But that was my first opportunity to understand, like, what we render on the camera is so important on how people see themselves. And for that high school, which was largely black, like, the principal felt like I put out an image of the school that wasn't representative of the school and the culture. So it was a whole thing. But I think for me in that moment at 16, I realized, like, oh, like documenting things has power to it. And this is before social media kind of came. It was just YouTube at that time.
And I've heard you talk about the fact that you were self-taught gave you an edge compared to some of your contemporaries who, you know, did formal training.
Yes. I mean, for me, I just went on YouTube or I learned myself. So I had a lot of friends who went to art school and all of that. And, you know, when you grow up in a city, you wish you could go to art school. That's the best thing. Or you go to, I have friends that went to art and design or went to, you know, all the cool places. But for me, I just went to a normal school where you just got to figure it out. But I think it gave me that edge to kind of find the hunger and community of like, okay, who has this like frequency and commonality with me? And I just learned by just trying YouTube and asking questions and researching, going to the library and reading about photography and other photographers that came before me, and as a storyteller and filmmaker. So
you became a student of it, really?
Say again? Yeah.
You became a student.
I'm a student. I feel like I'm still a student now, honestly. I'm constantly learning about the process and how to improve on telling stories and lighting and portraiture and all that good stuff. So I try to remain a student, yeah.
Well, I think it's time that let's take a look at some of your work.
Yeah.
We're gonna play The Process.
Yes, and I guess I'll cue it up. To me, The Process, this film was obviously, you know, produced and helped by Lincoln and UWG, who approached me to do this amazing project. And for me, I just wanted to show an opportunity of what the storytelling process is for me, balancing life, family, and creativity. And a lot of times as a creative, you feel like you have to choose either family or even work. You just have to choose family over work or work over family. So here's an example of how I kind of integrate that process in my life, and what that looks like from this perspective. So it's an example of behind the scenes of a film that I did, and the process is all about showing what that looks like.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. It's 2 minutes.
My name is Joshua Kissi, and I'm a photographer and director. New York is all about keeping up with the pace, the movement, energy of the city. Creating that pace for yourself, for your family, for your community. But I truly have found a home within Los Angeles. For me, storytelling is everything. I feel like the sense of discovery starts with you. Your perspective, your POV. And I think Lincoln understands the importance of that, which encourages me to kind of break out of my own comfort zone. There are those moments where you feel like everything is on the go around you. There are times where you feel like you really need a moment of pause or a moment of stillness. I think there's this inherent fear of choosing work over family. I feel like being a father, being a parent is a transformative experience. I've become a more informed storyteller. The foundation of all creativity is play and imagination. But now I'm really inspired by the idea of my kids being able to understand more about me as an artist, as a father, as a husband. All of these different parts of me influence how I see the world. What inspired this film, A Lesson in Flying, is the imagination of play, being a young kid, wanting to have that ability to fly. Selecting this desert location was important. It represents everything that is the opposite of my work. Portraiture, people, humanity. These two twin brothers, somehow they still find joy, still find moments of connection while flying.
Nice, yep, need that movement, great.
I'm scared of heights. I feel like it's too late to say that, but we should have fun.
Ideas grow stronger in collaboration. Somebody brings their experience, their point of view to an idea that I have. No longer mine, it's ours, collectively.
All right, team, here we go.
About to make a movie.
Let's roll camera. Go. Josh, you want it one more time or you good?
Let's do it one more time, yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
So you've worked with brands a lot, but what do you need as a collaborator when it comes to these type of partnerships?
Yeah, honestly, like normally I'm not that transparent about, just showing your family, because I always feel like anything you give to the public, they have a sense of ownership over. So I'm always very particular about like if I'm going to show my wife, my daughter, my son, and what that looks like. But obviously in this day and age, that's the thing that's transferable as well. So partnership looks like authentic growth. Like I don't want to do one project where it feels like that's the only thing we've done. So with the Lincoln and UWG team, it's been able to UWG team has been able to create this like real relationship, which I think is important. Because so many times like brands will hit you up and be like, let's just do this one thing, et cetera, et cetera. But I was like, how do we create this ongoing conversation? Because I feel like people connect to that more. And in a way, people are not naive now. People understand image campaigns, influencer stuff. Yeah. And I don't want to sell anything that I wouldn't necessarily put my face behind. So for this is an opportunity to show like family, faith, culture, creativity, and what that looks like from my perspective. And then create a project about two brothers being able to fly, which was a whole other thing that the behind the scenes of that was crazy. But yeah, just going, beyond the limit of what you think is possible and thinking through the opportunity to think through like, what can I say with this project that people haven't seen before, and what does that look like? So for me, it looked like two brothers being able to fly in the middle of the air and feel limitless and all the feelings that came with that.
It's interesting you say that because, audiences now are very savvy.
Yeah.
So if we're going to watch something that's branded, it does need to feel very authentic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because people feel like they've been sold something. And, I know people are doing things for KPIs and engagement, but I try to think through, like, how does this change or alter somebody's life? It may not be the guys flying, but it may be me speaking around choosing family over work or work over family and, like, feeling like as a man, like, you're here to, kind of steward and lead, but at the same time, like, as a man, as a husband, my best responsibility is listening to my wife, right? So there's that balance of like, how do you play all of that within your identity and what creativity and storytelling looks like for you? So for me, like I said in that video, the opportunity is for my kids to understand a little bit more about me through my work and what that looks like. And I've seen other artists who are like, okay, it's just the art thing and family comes after, and I just don't believe that. So yeah.
Okay. Now I want to ask Lincoln why you are the perfect collaborator. Gabi Crowley, Lincoln's social comms and strategy manager. From your perspective, what made Joshua really, really great to work with?
Wow, put her on the spot.
Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think from the beginning, we've trusted Joshua's vision and storytelling. Not only is he a talented creator, but, he always shows up as his authentic self. And that's something that is held true for Lincoln as a brand. So really it was the perfect fit. Your dedication to your work and to your family is something we admire, and we're really honored to have you as part of the Lincoln family. So that's really it. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And if you haven't checked out the navigators outside, do that after this.
Please do. But as well as like growing up, can I have my mic up a little bit, please? Thank you, sir. I don't want to feel like I'm screaming like I'm on the block. But growing up, my dad had a Lincoln Town Car. So it was like a red one. It was like candy painted red. Like that was his thing. So it was a memory that came across when Lincoln reached out. I was like, oh, my dad used to have this car that was everything. And, memories go alongside car memories. And a lot of those things are things we harken back to. So it was really, really a lot of great synergy that was happening naturally when they reached out.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, full circle. Because I was like, oh, Lincoln, amazing. And I remember the Navigator, obviously, we all remember that. So just seeing how beautiful it is now and the rendition of the models has been great to see. Yeah.
And it, again, as a layer to why you being chosen is authentic.
Yeah.
Because you have that connection.
Yeah.
For our next clip that we're going to share, the lesson of flying, it really feels like perfectly aligned with your personal aesthetic. So let's check it out.
Yeah, let's check it out. This is the actual film of the dude being like, I'm scared to fly, but we're here. It's a whole other story I'll tell at the end about them being in the air for this long, but yeah.
Lesson 1. Every journey begins with a single move. Lesson 2. Embrace the unknown. Lesson 3. Freedom lies in play. Lesson 4. Every flight must find its landing. But once you've tasted the sky, the ground can never feel the same again. A lesson in flying.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, all the things. Nice. Yep. Yeah, for me, it was just an opportunity to tell a Afro-futuristic story that, for me, it felt like we needed a reset in some ways, and it was an interesting way to think through Black joy, flight, and just being like, yo, sometimes the world is saying a lot, but we're just here. Like, this is what we're saying, this is what we want to do, this is how we want to enjoy ourselves, and that story is really important. And as a kid, everybody wanted to fly on some level. Like, that's one of the first things I think as a kid you start to imagine. So yeah, this was an example of what that looked like, and it was fun, but the one brother was scared to get in the air, and I was like, bro, you could have told me this like weeks ago. We've been talking about this for weeks, and you don't want to get up in the air. The whole concept is about being in the air. So that was his own thing, and
How did you talk him up there?
How did I talk him up there? I mean, once he saw his twin brother go up, you know, they're so connected as kindred spirits, as we know with twins. So he was like, all right, I could do that. Mm-hmm. But he was counting the seconds that he was up there, because they were probably 75 feet in the air, maybe higher. Swinging on that device with the camera being up there as well. So yeah, we made sure everything was safe, obviously. But it will get you a little dizzy being up there. But it was fun, and it just felt like something different from what was happening around.
And how many days did it take to shoot this?
That was just one day. Yeah, just one day in the desert in Palmdale. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So we would be remiss without mentioning that we're here at the Martha's Vineyard Afro-American Film Festival.
Absolutely.
This is your first time to the Vineyard.
Yes.
But I'm sure you know the history of the Vineyard. It was definitely a place that was a sanctuary.
Absolutely.
For many African Americans. And I saw this quote recently on Instagram during one of my scrolls, and it's from the Very Black Project, and it stopped me in my tracks because it says, quote, "Producing, posting, proving. Even our moments of rest become content. Even our holidays become performances. We participate in capitalism with a Black aesthetic, and we call it opportunity. We are tired." Ooh. And I know, that's what I said. That's what I said.
Yeah.
But as creatives, this is our work. This is our passion. This is our joy.
Yes.
But what do you do to establish boundaries when you need to rejuvenate? Like, how do you pause?
That's a great question. I was just laughing while you're saying, I wasn't laughing at the fact that obviously this has been a historic place for African Americans, but getting here, you took the ferry, I took that small plane with the 5 people, and I was scared for my life because I didn't.
Shout out to Cape Air. Shout out
Cape Air. Shout out Cape Air, because I had no idea I was getting on that plane. I'm like, okay, JetBlue, let's, and then they're like, how much you weigh? I'm like, how much I weigh? I'm like, what did this got to do with the plane? Like, okay, I'm 190, like, do I still make it on? But yeah, so I'm very much enjoying being on the ground. I sent some prayers to my mom. She's praying in tongues. I'm like, Mom, I'm good. Like, I'm gonna make it. But it's such a blessing to be here. So it was an experience to be like, okay, this is my first time in Martha's Vineyard. I got to get on this 5-person plane. Let's do it. I just didn't expect that. But that's how I rejuvenate, by scaring myself with experiences like that.
Wow.
No,
cool,
definitely
though.
not. No, I think we work in media, we work in branding, we work with so many different agencies, and sometimes I do need to take a step back and be like, what is this actually saying? Is it creating more noise? Is it creating new conversations? Obviously, like, it's all linked to capitalism and our existence and our culture being linked to capitalism. Depending on how you look at it, could you just have to ask yourself the right questions. So I have a community of friends who are like, okay, you're doing that X project, but what else are you doing to kind of give back to the community or provide more opportunities? So I always just think through the community lens of it. Obviously, I try to center myself as a husband, as a father, as a brother, as a son first, and then I feel like I could engage with the world in a very authentic way. But I feel like once your lens is kind of clouded, it's very hard for you to engage with anybody if you're not are able to positively engage with yourself first. So I try to find that time, like similar to what I was doing in that video. I'm from the Bronx, but now I could walk on the beach in LA, you know? Like, I'm like, I'll take this. This is not Orchard Beach, you know? Orchard Beach is different in the Bronx. But
It is different.
very different. You'll see some
Shout
things
out City
floating
Island,
around.
City
and-
Island.
So no, it's
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, the City Island is nice. That's true. But I think I just try to take time for myself amongst a busy schedule and the demand of always feeling like you have to be on. So obviously that part of resetting and refreshing, but also ask myself, like, if I do this project, what do I bring uniquely to the table that's just me? Like, what's my fingerprint? I always try to ask myself that before taking on anything, because it's just, you know, it's a people-centric job. If you don't like people, then you can't work in this space. You know, my mom is a nurse, my dad's a pastor, so I just grew up in a very empathetic household that always was people-centric first. But the balance of that is like, I gotta find ways to prioritize myself, because with them, they kind of gave themselves to community, which is great, but I'm like, okay, I take those lessons and values, and how do I make sure I center myself by the end? So how I rejuvenate is just making sure I feel good about myself, going to therapy, going to all the things, and trying to make sure that I could show up every day feeling like the best version of myself. And if that feels off, I might need to reassess, yeah.
Okay. And for something like, a lesson in flying, that is so creative. What do you do when you need to spark like deep creativity? Do you like hold yourself up for a few days, or?
Yeah, I just feel like you got to throw yourself into life. For me, it's like, I don't really isolate. Like, I'll just have more conversations with people, you know, do research and just kind of think through, like, what ideas have I been holding within my notes? Because I like to write down things I want to do in the future, and think through, like, is this the right project for this time right now? And the lesson in flying felt like, it's called a lesson in flying because it was like, how do we reset this idea of what flight means? And you don't got to leave the ground to feel limitless. You know, it's like, what does that look like in your day-to-day life, and how you approach that? So for me, that was kind of the starting point of how I came up with that project.
Okay. I have just a few more questions before we open it up to the audience. So get
Amazing.
your questions ready. We'll have someone coming through with microphones. So when it comes to collaboration versus control, how do you preserve vision without rigidity?
I know that's very hard to do. I think I'm one of the more collaborative directors / photographers. I don't try to hoard the process, because I was like, nobody owns the story, right? So I always think through that when I think about projects or thinking about films or photo shoots I'm doing. I'm like, we just have the privilege of sharing the story. We don't own it, right? So I think removing myself from the process of like, this needs to be mine, this is all about me, kind of opens up a healthy environment for people to show up in. So control just looks like us being able to contribute the best parts of ourselves to the center and be like, this is what I envision. And I think once you understand people's fears going into any relationship or project, you understand like what's at stake and how to navigate around that. So I think I've had a long career because I know how to work with people and understand, like, if you're scared or something, how do we navigate that, have the conversation, and then we could flow from a place of like fruitfulness, you know, and being able to like get what we're all looking for here. So it's hard. It's definitely hard because you're working with all types of people all the time, especially with celebrities. As he was going through those names, I was like, oh, that was a good experience. Oh, that, yeah, you know. But like, I'm glad you're saying them, but I get it. Like, their lives, like their time is not always for them. So when they're on set, like, you know, you don't know who you're gonna get, right? Most of those people have been great, but there are other people who, you know, you just have some friction with because they don't want to do the thing or they need their, you know, all that stuff. But I think more than anything else, I'm just like, I'm a human just like you, doing my job, you know, and I think when people recognize that, you get a better end product by the end.
Yeah, I heard you say on a podcast that when you get to that moment where it's ours, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, when it's ours, it feels better. When it's just yours, it's limited, you know? So my dad always tell me, like, how do you think beyond you just enjoying it? How do you make everybody in the room enjoy it as well?
Yeah. So what is your advice to emerging filmmakers on cultivating patience, purpose, and intention? Oh,
wow,
sorry.
these are deep
Intuition.
questions. These are deep. Patience, purpose, and intention.
No, or intuition. I'm
Intuition.
sorry.
Intuition, you gotta go to church or go to the mosque, go to something. No, I'm joking. No, but I think you just have to know yourself. Like, you just have to truly know yourself and surround yourself with a community of people that believe similarly. And I think that's why growing up in New York, I feel like growing up in New York and having the internet is like a cheat code, honestly. It's like growing up in a city where you can just go outside and experience the things that you're inspired by. You can't do that in Omaha, Nebraska, right? But no shots to Omaha, Nebraska. If anybody's from there.
Shade.
No. I love Omaha. Like, that's where Malcolm X, but even if you're from a place like that, because you're removed, you have to be even more intentional about your creative process. So I feel like any person that's outside of the city, or like maybe you're left of center, it gives you a certain perspective on how to navigate, because like you have this one stream that's working, and then you have to find an alternative. And anytime you have to find an alternative, that's where innovativeness comes in, that's where progress comes in, that's where trials and tribulations are gonna come in. So you just have to like find yourself in that way. And I feel like being from the Bronx was kind of that, where it's like, okay, not in Brooklyn, but you kind of have to find yourself and see what makes sense. But having the internet and then having New York City to kind of run through is like, it's unfair in some ways, because you get to experience everything all within itself.
You mentioned living in LA now. Does your aesthetic or purpose change a bit because of that California life?
The California life, yeah. I mean, we have.
It's just. Compared to New York, you slow down. You mentioned the water. I just read in the Washington Post that being next to water is very calming. So. No, for me, when we looked at LA, we thought around communities that represented us. So we settled in Ladera Heights, which we really love. There's other young black families who are doing the same things we're doing. And in New York, I didn't really have that. So it was just nice to be like, all right, Los Angeles already has this community of legacy of black neighborhoods. Like, how do we invest into that? So living there has also inspired me, because it's like, what does creativity look like in rest? And that's something that I've been asking myself more and more. I don't want to feel like I'm on the go. Like in New York, I feel like I was always on the go. Yeah.
In LA, I have to ask myself, what does creativity look like in rest? When I'm in a space that's, benefited me, because now I'm being able to think through the next idea, and it's not chaotic and it's not reactionary to everything that's happening around me. So I think for me, LA's provided a space for family to expand, for mindset to expand, for relationships to expand. Because I was telling somebody, I'm like, in New York, you could kind of run into people for like 10 years and never see their house. Like, bro, I don't know where you live, but I've known you for a decade. Like, and I will fight for you, but I don't know where you live. I don't know how you live. That's a whole other thing. But in LA, you got to really intentionally be like, I want to come to your house and have tea and sit down and have, you have to be really intentional. So New York is just different, where you have homies for years and you don't know how they live in. But in LA, it at least produces some level of community that feels a lot more intentional for me at this stage, where it's not just you run into people in Soho or in Bed-Stuy or at Bedvine, and all the things. It's like you have to really make time to be like, I want you in my life, and what does that look like, vice versa. That's just
you have a moment of pause.
You have a moment of pause, yeah. So it fits for where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Any questions? Oh, we have one right here.
Oh, wow. Jeez. I didn't even get to take a breather.
Well, drink your water.
Be able to take a couple deep breaths before a question, but.
I'll let him take a breath. Hi, everybody. I'm Nydia Simone. I'm a filmmaker, writer, storyteller. I love your work. I've been following you for a few years. Love your stuff on like AI and the future of all that stuff. While watching the twins, it reminded me of like Ebony, and I wanted to know if you were inspired by like African traditional religions, and if that was on purpose. Was that intentional?
Yes, it was. So obviously, Ibe is very much a West African, Nigerian heavy influence. But for a lesson in flying, there were some cultural aspects I wanted to incorporate, being from Ghana, and the Adinkra symbols and all the things that they represent. So I kind of found ways to kind of, creatively put those in there in terms of twins, the duality of twins, one being scared, one not, like even their whole conversation around that was important. So I'm always trying to find ways to be like, symbols mean things, and like we have to reinterpret what they mean. And around my neck, I just wear the Adinkra symbols. So, like, Sankofa, which ones that everybody knows. But for me, it's important to kind of have this around my neck to remind myself where I come from, the values, and even though media may say one thing, like, you know, kind of having that real knowledge is important. So yeah, for me, it's cultural, is the rootedness is always important because it's something to harken back to, even though I'm being born and raised in the Bronx, but like the Bronx also has a high population of so many different types of immigrants and people. And so I felt like I grew up in an international city, which I did, but in the Bronx in particular, the north side of the Bronx, there's just a lot of Ghanaians and West Africans and also Puerto Ricans and Panamanians and all types of people. But yeah. So that was intentional. So thank you.
Right here.
Questions? Oh, let's go.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Julie Wenna. First and foremost, thank you to UWG, Lincoln, Ebony, and the Film Festival for creating this space. Joshua, thank you for your work. We had a chance to work together in 2020, and I want to make sure I lift this. We did some work after George Floyd was murdered, creating social impact toolkits called Breathing Room, and Joshua created some beautiful artwork. On that project, I worked in a legal capacity, and that's what I've been doing throughout my whole career while like having a foot in like creative and creating short films through the years. I've recently stepped away fully and am now in my moment of lesson in flying. And I'm curious to know if you can walk through those steps, any sort of testimony that you may have that might be encouraging for any creative who is embarking on their lesson in flying.
Wow. I think, I feel like you have to be fiercely curious, you know, just keep asking questions, I think is a part, because you're gonna hear the no's, you're gonna hear like why it can't happen, well, you're gonna hear all of that, but I try to double down in the fact that like this should happen, it should exist, and you're gonna go through the trials and tribulations of it, the ups, the downs of expressing that idea. So I think for the most part, for me, it's just like, it starts out of like, this should exist, and you're passionate about it, but you notice over time, the more no's you get, the less passionate you are. You're like, okay, where did that passion go? I thought this project was gonna be great. Now I kind of want to do it. This person said they can't do it. Like, there's just more and more excuses. But to me, that those barriers become kind of testimonies on why it should happen, and being able to like have the mental fortitude to be like, okay, here's the step-by-step process. Because a lot of people start creative projects, but then you just get caught in the middle of like, I don't know where's my ending point, my starting point. So I think it's really important to hold yourself to timelines and be like, all right, I'm gonna give myself 2 months to approach this from every way possible. If that's not working, I might have to shelve this, or if it is working, I'm just gonna have to lean into it, and whatever it comes out to be, it's one thing. But even with the whole lesson in flying film, like I had an idea that I thought would happen, but anytime you create something, it's not gonna be one-to-one of what you thought. Like you almost have to fall in love with the new version of this idea. Like you can't go into and be like, it needs to be exactly like that's great, but at some point in time, because now you have people contributing to your vision, they're gonna have their own alterations of what that looks like. So you kind of have to lean into nuance. But I feel like every time I create a project and then I sit down and now I'm looking at the edit or looking at these photos or the film, I have to re-fall in love with the new thing that's in front of me, or else you feel disappointed, or da-da. So you have to lean into that, where it's like, okay, this is a new version of this person, of this idea. What does that look like now? Even though mentally you've told yourself it needs to look one way. So you kind of have to be open mentally in terms of the flexibility around how ideas are expressed. Because like I said, you don't own it. Like you just came up with it, it came in your brain. And for me, it's being able to share it to the next person. And that effect is the most important part. And you holding on to it doesn't do a service to anybody.
That was deep. Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
No, but that's real. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Appreciate it.
We have a question here.
Hi, Joshua.
Hi.
Hi. So when you said Palmdale, that resonated with me.
Okay,
because
I hope in a good way.
No,
Yeah.
I live in Santa Clarita, Stevens
Nice.
Ranch. So my name is Donna Brown, also known as Auntie Donna Brown.
Love that.
Which is an influencer name because I work with entrepreneurs, okay? When you
Amazing.
said you create IP and you don't necessarily own it, I love that because what I do is, as an intellectual property attorney is teach people if you have a business brand, make sure you own it.
Yes.
And towards that, two things. Number one, Lincoln is a heck of a brand to be associated with, okay? Because I'm 58 years old. I'm looking at the pictures. You guys have got these major books out there. You got to take a look at it. And I remember in 1977, when I was 11 years old, I went to my uncle's house in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for the express purpose of seeing this Mark V.
Wow.
Okay? Because he had a car, his Lincoln Continental, then he got the Mark IV, and then he got the Mark V that just sat in his garage. And it was like the first time I knew of a family who had a car that just sat there like a living room you don't use, right? So that was major, okay? Number two, though, I love what you're doing up here with your brand. I mean, right now, a lot of people we're looking at the news, we're looking at propaganda for our White House, and it's up to us to make our own stories. So for you, as you move forward, you're so talented, wondering if you have a little checklist or some guidelines of who you are as an artist, who you will, or maybe not necessarily represent.
Who am I as an artist and who do I represent? Is that
yeah, it's like kind of like your mission, vision. Because Lincoln obviously aligns with you. You're so talented. I'm sure you have to tell people no, right? But there's a reason for that, because you're creating something, a vibe. So I'm just curious what that is for you.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. I think through each project, people should be able to look back at your legacy and put the pieces together. And there's some jobs I turned down, whether it's like politically or socially, or there are things that don't align with me personally. And I feel like I have to kind of live with that, because by the end, it's going to say directed by Joshua Kissi or photographed by Joshua Kissi. So in some ways, there's synergy there. So for me, I feel like I'm an emotionally conscious creative where I'm thinking through community, culture, but as well as what does this look like for the next generation? So it's not just about me working and doing this, but it's like the people who are coming up next, like how do I make sure it's a safer space for them? And I try as best as I can, especially behind the scenes, to refer other creatives, other photographers, other directors. If I can't do it, it doesn't mean the job dies. I was like, oh, you should look at these three people. They're amazing. They're based out of Atlanta. They're based out of Detroit, wherever. So I think for me, it's the responsibility to pass on that opportunity and not hoard it just because I can't do it. Doesn't mean it can't happen, and realizing that. But it's also knowing that, like, I don't want to take up space where others should also take up space, because even to that point, within the Black diaspora circle, the Black diaspora family, as we all love it, like there's also stories that are probably generationally African American that I'll be like, I'm not the right person, but this person is. I'm just first gen, like I just got here kind of at the party, but like this person is, their family's been here for 4 or 5 generations, 6 generations, or this family from North Carolina that's got a little Geechee. Like, I just feel like we can't just have this blank slate of blackness, and just like the more nuance we get, the even better. So for me, I turned down, I try to do the responsibility of turning down projects, even though I have the privilege of that, to be like, hey, here's the people that actually should tell the story, and I could tell the story. If you want to go to Ghana, I'm down. But if we just hear, like, here's the people that could tell that story at length and has the history to back it up.
I'm curious, though, have you ever had a brand partner who you attempted to turn down, but they were like, no, you're the vision?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like, but it's creatives being obsessed with the vision of like, it's the way you know, it's all that stuff that goes into it. But sometimes you got to have a real conversation of like, if you want to tell this story authentically and you want people to be impacted by this positively, you have the responsibility. And for a lot of us, we go into our jobs and you work your 9 to 5, but then you have the responsibility of thinking about your community, all the decisions, like, it's almost like we're doing 3 jobs in one most times. And we're not getting paid for all of that. So it's just like, if we have this responsibility to think around our culture and what does a safe space look like, for me, with the privilege that I have, I'm like, I have to pass it on. Like, I just wouldn't feel good to take the opportunity just because I'm Black, but it's like there's so many different types of Black and how we arrive here that needs to make sense, you know? And then people are gonna look at that as a reference point. So that's my biggest thing, is like, I don't want people in the future to look at that and think that was a depiction of truth, knowing that it was a decision that was misinformed.
Okay, all right. We have one in the back. And I think this will be our last question.
Love it.
Oh, two in the back.
2, great.
Oh my God. Hi, Joshua.
Hi.
My name is Nnamdi Kanaga, and I'm a filmmaker. I'm here with my debut feature film, which is showing tomorrow. And I wanted to...
Nice. Yeah, let's give it.
Thank you. this is my first time being in a big festival like this, so I'm very thankful for the opportunity. But I walked in here and I heard you talked about how your Ghanaian ancestry inspires your work and all. I'm Nigerian.
I know. I'm surprised. I'm like, we have our beef, but we'll table that for later. No jollof rice debates here. We'll keep it.
My question is very specific. My films, I sort of like I'm carving a niche for myself to tell authentic African stories, because like you, I believe that, you know, to represent stories matter, but authentically is what's important. So I can't tell, you know, a story about the Black experience when I don't have that. I tell my African experience, which is what I know best, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I made my feature film, which is heavy on African mythology, sort of like I started feeling like it wasn't going to be accepted. It wasn't going to be welcomed here in America, for example, because mine is very much folkloric, very much like cultural, like, but though it was set here, it's still very much like culturally specific. So, and I'm like asking myself, after I made the film, I started dealing with, like, you know, depression and all. I'm like, oh, do I need to change my stories? Do I need to do something else just to get a foot in the door? Yeah. Do I need to change and tell maybe some kind of romance or something else that people would accept? You know, but I heard you talk about, like, you know, how your origin and everything inspires, and I'm just asking, how do you remind yourself that the stories you tell matter? And even though it's not accepted at the moment, someday, sometime, the world will accept it.
That's an amazing question. Let's give him a hand for completing a feature film. I mean, I feel like doing a feature film is one of the hardest things you can do as a person. You'll go through all the ups and downs. So the fact that you completed it in itself is almost like making a baby in a sense. You know, not one-to-one, obviously. I don't want to get flamed by women, but I'm just saying, like, it's the process of ups and downs and the joys of birthing something into the world where you may have some control over it, but like our brother is saying here, like how people interpret it is a whole other thing. But I think for me, it's just being able to double down in who you are, double down on those stories, knowing that we're all interconnected. Like, yes, like there are variations of us, but we're all interconnected, and there are people who are generationally African American who are more curious about, you know, African mythology from a Nigerian perspective, but also we might be curious about African mythology from somebody in North Carolina, you know what I mean? Or it's a Gullah Geechee culture. Like, there's so many different factions of the stories that need to make sense. And for me, it's like the machine will catch up to it, but sometimes you're early to the party, but I don't mean you leave. It's like, I'm early to the party, but like, let me get a drink, let me find my rhythm, let me find my people, and then navigate that way. But I think in a lot of ways we get discouraged because people aren't giving us this yes, especially in Hollywood or in media, but it's like, we're doing it for our own community and culture. And the people that understand it and are intentional about finding that information, because with African mythology and just African traditionalism, there's a lot of, negative connotations around the spirituality part of it. So I think we have to own it, because nobody else is going to be like, oh, I mean, they do. Some people are like, oh, we're going to flip this and make money off of it. Here you are. We repackage the same story that you were scared of, but here it is for you. I think it's realizing that those stories have power, and at its source, if we're able to claim those stories and reinterpret and expand on the conversation, more and more people will be inspired by that action. So what you're doing is a crazy feat, because you're not doing what's expected, but at the same time, long term, the impacts of that kind of creates a connection between the community. And for me personally, like being born and raised in the Bronx, but being from Ghana, I just consider myself a bridge. Because when I go back to Ghana, they're like, oh, Charlie, you're not Ghanaian enough. When I'm in America, it's like, oh, you're African. So it's like, there's that balance of where, like, I'm just here for the bridge. As long as people can get from one side to the other, that's my job, right? So I might take some tolls on the bridge, you know what I mean? Increase the tolls, like, yeah, we gotta run the numbers up. But no, I just consider myself to be that in-between, and I lean into the gray area instead of being like, I'm not here, I'm not there. I'm just like, I'm building this. And the more specificity and clarity around that, well, people will be able to identify that bridge, and like their walk becomes easier. Their drive becomes easier is because of that bridge. So, yeah.
And they will be driving a Lincoln.
Yeah, they'll be driving a Lincoln.
Across the bridge. Yeah. Joshua, thank you. Before we end, what's next for you?
Yeah. Right now, I've been on the road for a bit. I was actually in Lagos, Nigeria, 2 weeks ago. It's in Atlanta. I'm going to Virginia after this. I'm working and as I'm working with brands, obviously, specialize in our community. I'm just taking on each project at a time and be like, does this make sense? And will our community be proud of this? You know, I got to really ask myself those questions. If I can't share it or post it, then that's probably not the project I want to do, right? So I think for me, I just feel like there's a responsibility to be transparent about my own journey and the jobs I say yes to. But yeah, working on many, many different things in the next couple months, and I'm just really excited for. So can't specify anything because of NDAs, but all the things that I think will inspire the community, and looking forward to having it all come out.
All right. And don't forget to pause.
Yeah, you gotta, yeah. And also have some upcoming things with Lincoln too, yeah, coming very soon. So that's exciting. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Obviously, it's my first time and second day on land after the Cape Air situation. So I think I'm just excited to walk around on the ground and just get to meet everybody, speak to them, and just taking this experience of this beautiful Black legacy that's been here for so many years. Yeah. I just feel like it's an honor and privilege to just be a part of it, to just be here. So I'm really blessed.
All right, go get some backdoor donuts. Thank
Yes.
you all. Thank you, Lincoln. Thank you, Joshua.